Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. In this one I just want to kind of do a kind of middle of the year sort of summary of just sort of where we're at. Basically just going over the stuff that we know is sort of coming, either far away or kind of closer. Both comics, books, merchandise, as well as the status of the major projects from Avatar Studios, Netflix live action, and cover sort of where we are in terms of like where we're going to expect news from and that sort of thing. So I think we have to start with the books, because the next, I suppose, really notable thing we're sort of looking for from story content perspective is the release of Suki Alone. So coming out end of July, 27th of July here. This is the third of three basically female-led one-shot comics that has been released from the creative team. This has been the big shift in the comics, the Avatar comics, away from telling the main plot to just telling these sort of side stories for the most part. Now they have said the Suki Alone book is going to be different, it's going to be much more emotional, and I think it's going to benefit from focusing on a character who doesn't get the attention all the time. Katara is a main character, Toph is a main character, Suki doesn't always get the spotlight, so this is going to be pretty interesting once we finally get the details. Now what is weird about this is that we're still quite a bit away from this book, and that like we're still the core of like 7, getting closer to 6 weeks away from this book. No sign of preview pages yet anywhere, and we haven't seen either the first 5 preview pages, which we usually get first, or the Google Books preview, which usually shows us quite a bit of the book. None of those two things have happened, and the book is not yet available for review copy request, because if I was getting a review copy, I'd be requesting it from here. You can see with the Toph comic, it says downloaded here because I downloaded the review copy from here when it got approved, and I put a review in for it here. So if this was available for review copy request, it would say sort of like request along here, and it doesn't. So yeah, very interesting to see when that's going to happen. And that, I guess the main preview pages would have to come within the next week or two, because otherwise the Google Book preview pages usually come out about a month before the book comes out, and we're getting kind of close to that. But in terms of other stuff, we have the Avatar cookbook. These preview pages, they're not actually proper preview pages, is what the author has said. So we're actually still waiting to see a proper look inside this book. It gives you, I suppose, the layout of roughly how things are going to look, but none of the actual information, I believe, on these is actually particularly correct. So I don't know, like we're expecting like a better cover as always from Inside Editions, and just I suppose stuff will be designed slightly differently. I don't have a ton of like high expectations going into this book, so we'll see how it turns out. But end of August for that book. It's not too far away, but it's also not a particularly exciting release either. Pushed back into September is the wall calendar from Abrams Books, basically. So this features art by the Kyoshi cover artist throughout, but it's an Avatar The Last Airbender one. So Kyoshi's going to be in here as well, Rangi's going to be in here, as well as a lot of other characters like Ozai and Paku. So yeah, 21st of September, really cool idea of this, of course. I know a lot of people are interested in this, just cool new art. It's not fully new, but it's newer than just the stock pieces of art we'd usually get and stuff like this, and you get a bonus print, so that's pretty cool. Smoke and Shadow Omnibus in September, that's going to be nice to add to the collection, but we're waiting to see when's the North and South Omnibus going to get announced, when's the Imbalance Omnibus going to get announced, and are they going to do omnibuses for like Turf Wars and Ruins of the Empire? That's the sort of stuff they need to get on. This is just Screen Comics Volume 2. I reviewed the first one. You guys know you don't really need to care about that too much. Chibi's Volume 1 in October is going to be a bit of a weird one, in that I guess once we get preview pages, we'll find out, how canon or not this is. Is it going full on Chibi where it is not canon, or is it going to be just a sort of inconsequential story that could be canon but doesn't really affect anything, and it's just done in a Chibi art style? We'll have to wait and see. But 48 pages, we're not expecting too much from this, but Volume 1, that would imply a Volume 2 is coming. We'll see how these do. Bit of a weird announcement when it came up. I know a lot of people have already forgotten this book exists, so it's important to keep it in mind. The Kyoshi novel box set is just going to be a re-release of the hardcover books, The Rise of Kyoshi and The Shadow of Kyoshi, in a box set, as you can expect. Would like to know what the box actually looks like before making a purchase decision, but you know, I'm not expecting too much in terms of it looking particularly fancy. And then, big book here, Beasts of the Four Nations, really cool new book, first one of these in a long time for Avatar. It's going to be a sort of like part art book, part encyclopedia, all about the animals of Avatar. It's going to be, 192 pages. This is pretty exciting. This is definitely one of the bigger releases of the year. Arguably, like, the biggest release of the year, probably, just because, it's either going to be this or Suki alone, unless they surprise us with something else. But that's just where we're at. This is just the paperback edition of The Rise of Kyoshi, and the Shadow of Kyoshi paperback is out on the same day, 17th of May 2022. Long time away, still basically a year away. Switching over to the core side of things, the only other thing to add here is just the re-release, the second edition, both the deluxe and normal version of the Book 2 Spirits art book. Again, these are pretty exciting. The deluxe editions are, of course, all going to add up with the Beast of the Four Nations and all the other art books to make the spine image situation. But again, we're waiting to see what they do for Book 3 Change, Book 4 Balance, art books, to see the new covers. But the big thing is more of like, okay, what's missing from the book lineup? Well, obviously, a new novel. Where are they? A new Korra comic, where's that? And what's next after Suki Alone for Avatar comics? Because again, Suki Alone's coming out in July. It still leaves a lot of time left in the year for a potential other Avatar comic release, but there's no sign of it. And we have books announced up until December, so anything new that I suppose gets announced is realistically going to fit in right at the end of the year or going into 2022. So the hopes and expectations, I think, for a Korra book slotting in this year are getting lower and lower by the minute. Same goes for new Avatar content, and just the question remains, like, they've teased that the next Korra comic for ages now, and there's still been no sign of it. Has it just been cancelled because of Avatar Studios? We don't really know. And then are we just forever going to now be expecting the Avatar comics to just be Suki Alone, Katara and the Pirate Silver quality? Will we ever get back to those stories the comics were actually telling? Hard to say. Final book that isn't on those lists because it's a free comic is the Free Comic Book Day 2021 Avatar and Korra comic. So this is obviously going to be available for free on August 14th, 2021. You're going to have to go to your local comic book store to get this, or I guess they will be putting it online digitally. I don't know the exact timing of that. In the past, if I remember correctly, the digital has not been available like particularly early on the day, so they wait a bit to do this. I can't remember exactly how long they wait, but notably, zero information on this thing. We know the creative team and that there is a Korra and there is an Avatar story, but that is really it. Blank cover, no details about what either story is about, and it's one of the only comics from the whole event. Two comics don't have their proper covers yet, these two, and then a lot of the other comics have preview pages, but we don't have preview pages for this yet, so it looks it's a bit of a mess, the situation going on here. And again, we're not too far away from the middle of August, so this will have to happen soon. And I think they've been teasing that they're going to announce the cover soon, but when is that? So that's more or less it for the books and novels. The only other thing to say is that with regards to new novels, the German publisher for Avatar comics and novels, so they translate them, of course, the Dark Horse books and so on, they did mention that according to their information, we will be getting other Avatar novels announced sometime like for next year. We haven't heard any extra news on top of that, so we don't know how correct or not correct that actually is. But it specifically says novels, and the only thing that fits novels are the two Kyoshi books. They've already kind of put those out, and I don't think they were talking about the paperback releases of the Kyoshi books, so something new. When is that going to get announced? So the fact that they know about that already and we don't actually have any proper information on it, that's kind of interesting. Combined with the fact that, again, it feels like there's maybe Avatar comic stuff that maybe should be announced but hasn't been announced yet. You can either treat it that Avatar Studios has completely delayed everything, or are they maybe building everything up for a big announcement of like everything at once? We'll speculate on that. We'll get to some stuff. But anyway, other thing that you might have forgotten about because it's been a few weeks at this point, and there hasn't been any extra news really. Avatar Braving the Elements, the official companion podcast for Avatar. It's going to be 40 episodes. The first episode is going to premiere June 22nd, 2021. It's going to be hosted by Janet Varney, who voices Korra, of course, and Dante Basco, who voices Zuko. And they're going to be doing like an Avatar and Korra rewatch. They're going to do, breakdown, analysis. But there's also going to be special guests on the podcast. And Mike and Brian have teased that they're going to be on at least one or two of these. So this is actually going to be pretty exciting, especially with like the date of the first episode not too far off. I'm guessing they'll launch this with a pretty big guest, or it'll just be Janet and Dante on their own. So yeah, I think it's either going to be just the two of them on their own or Mike and Brian, but we'll wait and see on that. I don't think that we're going to get any sort of like news from this, because I think a lot of this stuff, especially these early episodes, are going to be like recorded ahead of time or recorded months ago, so I wouldn't be expecting any like current news to happen. But they could coincide some announcements with something kind of big like this. Either way, this is going to be kind of exciting. With regards to Avatar Studios, we still pretty much only know this information, which is what we've had since the initial announcement, that the studio is going to produce new series, spin-offs, films, short-form content. It is a studio designed specifically just to make new Avatar content, what we've always wanted. The first project is planned to be an animated theatrical film, starting production this year. But they also, in the press release, said that, Avatar shows coming in the next 2 years. And obviously, if you know anything about just sort of how long production takes, like you'd assume a movie quality animated movie would take a little bit longer to make than 2 years if it's only going into production later this year. So what's going on there? Like it's still hard to picture the exact full scope of this studio because we don't know anything about it past the initial announcement. But they are saying basically that we'll have something new Avatar related by March 2023, because the Paramount Plus launched March this year. So within 2 years of the platform is March 2023. I'm not sure how that's going to work out, or if it was just them saying stuff in this, but the fact that they made such a big announcement about this gives me the impression that they do have plans to just get stuff going sooner rather than later. So it's why I do have some confidence that like we'll get news like sooner rather than later, because again, probably the only update we've actually received in Avatar Studios was about a month after the initial announcement. There was the Nick up front and a kind of update article, and it basically was just from one of the high ups at Nickelodeon, Viacom. And he just said that like we're still in the planning stages, but there'll be news soon. So like they specifically said news soon on this thing, even though it's still in the early stages. So we're going to know well ahead of the release of this what we're getting. Which brings me into ComicCon 2021 coming up July 23rd to the 25th. It is going to be a Comic-Con at home, so it's going to be different than your usual Comic-Con. I suppose they're better prepared to do the digital Comic-Con this year, so I assume it's going to have some pretty major announcements. Dragon Prince is doing a panel at this, that they've announced that already. There's no program schedule up, as you can see here, so I assume it's just a little bit early. I think we typically have the full schedule like in or around a month before the event, so within the next 2 weeks, you'd expect to know like exactly what's going on, what isn't happening at this convention. Will there be an Avatar panel? And if there is, will it be what we want or what we don't want? What we don't want, of course, is we don't want the usual Avatar panel that we get from like Dark Horse every year. That's really boring. They never talk about any news, and it's just whatever guests that they have just answering the same questions over and over again. Really, really boring events. It's worn super thin, given that like they've been effectively doing them for like the last 7+ years. We need to go back to the older school style of stuff where there'd be proper announcements at these, like during Korra, ahead of each season. Those type of ComicCon things are what we're looking for. And I don't think it's out of the question, because we knew about Korra 2 years before Korra aired. We had concept art, we knew about, Aang's son Tenzin. So we're in or around the, 2 years away from whatever first project is. They probably have to announce that in or around now. And the impression I get from Avatar Studios is that it is the type of studio that will make major announcements all at once. Because I think it would be a little bit of a step backwards if they had a big panel and all they had to talk about was just the one project. Like, there is expectations, honestly, now, that when they announce stuff, that they announce, here's our first movie, and here's our first series, and here's some extra stuff. Like Star Wars does when they make their announcements. Here's 3 streaming series, and here's what the next movie is. Oh, and there's another movie in very early production, but here's the director. They're announcing that sort of stuff, and I don't think I'm too far off in terms of like predicting that. I think that's kind of what they have to do here if they make an announcement, is really go in on, okay, there's nothing like inherently like huge to show you right now. Like, we don't necessarily have a trailer for like a first piece of content, but we can tease the scope of this universe the first time properly and openly talking about Avatar Studios. By the time we get to July 23rd to 25th, you'd hope that they've properly planned what they're actually going to do. Otherwise, it feels like we're really, really, really far behind. Because again, they've likely been in planning for this months before they made the announcement in February, and plus they've had all the time since then, and there's still a little bit to go. Hopefully they have things in place to make some announcement, even if they are early announcements. I want to just have a better sense for what Avatar Studios is and what it's going for, because like I said, this is all we know right now. The only imagery to associate with Avatar Studios is just the studio logo. I want to associate a character, an era, something with Avatar Studios and what we have to expect. And I really do hope that's what we get. And then, even if they can't say much about their Avatar Studios projects, maybe they can make announcements about comics, about new novels at their panel, as like, but we can talk about all this extra stuff. That would be pretty cool. So either way, there's announcements expected realistically from both sides, both the Avatar Studios and the kind of comic and novel side of things. As far as Netflix Avatar goes, the live action show, they're obviously in the middle of like kind of casting and stuff like that at the moment. So I suppose within the coming weeks, coming months, we'll find out potentially who the actors are. We'll get our first looks at, so I guess, costumes and stuff like that. I don't know how far along or not we are, but by the end of the year, the idea is that they'll start filming. We'll probably start to see some leaked pictures from the set, and we'll have an idea of like, oh, that's how the costumes look, that's what the sets look like, and we might be able to make a few ideas about like, oh, this looks very Kyoshi Island, they're clearly Kyoshi warriors, okay, so they're doing that, they're adapting that, they're not adapting that. Make some kind of questions like that, but I don't think we'll hear like too much like huge information on live action Avatar this year, but by the end of the year I do expect like we'll know something. We'll have at least a look at what it is. And beyond that, I think we're pretty much into merchandise. Like McFarlane Toys, they made the first picture announcement. They're saying pre-orders are coming soon. But we know that there's more of their lineup to announce in terms of like they've got the other scale of figures, they've got an Aang statue, they do have the Korra license. I don't know if they're going to wait to do Korra or if they're holding that back or whatever, but either way there'll be a bigger announcement surrounding all this McFarlane Toys stuff. We'll get a better look at everything hopefully, and that's going to be pretty exciting. probably way too early to tease like Wave 2 and 3 and stuff like that, but who knows? Depends on how big they view having the Avatar license. Funkos, of course, these are coming out basically in the next couple of months. They've announced the second wave. Pretty exciting when they got announced, and these are going to be, again, fun pieces of merchandise to pick up, in the immediate future, of course. Then in terms of other merchandise, like we've just got like I said, a lot of the stuff like Diamond Select figures. Their Sokka's going to be coming out. The Ozai and Toph just very recently came out. What else do we have here? It looks like they're doing a re-release of the Gallery Aang PVC statue, which you can see just over there. I have this one. The Q figs, of course, they're going to do the Aang statue and then the Q pals for these three characters here. Migo Aang. Oh, this thing looks absolutely terrible. But yeah, that's coming out if you want it. The Katara PVC diorama figure. There's going to be the Zuko one as well. There's like fig pins. There's the Funko Pop pins as well. Lots and lots of Avatar merch, but like we're still waiting on a few things in terms of like, at this point I think people are just really eager to see Diamond Select. We're waiting for Wave 5 and 6. When are we going to see our first Book 3 Katara action figure? When are we going to see a Suki, a Ty Lee, a Mei action figure? Like we've seen our first, Ty Lee and the Funko Pops, but proper action figures, we're waiting for a lot of those kind of smaller characters, for sure. Best Action, again, we're waiting for their initial announcements. McFarlane, we're waiting for their announcements, as well as a lot of the other stuff. Magpie Games have the Avatar role-playing game coming out, and the main update on this is just that the Kickstarter for it is going to be summer 2021. Now, I don't think a Kickstarter was part of the initial announcement, so I'm guessing this is just how it is in the games industry at this point, that they have to make sure, so they do it via Kickstarter. But this should be pretty exciting when that Kickstarter goes up, just because they'll have to present a decent amount of information on the game. So this is going to be pretty cool once it finally kind of hits, because even if you're not very interested in playing these type of games, the book will likely have decent information on Avatar, so it's something to keep your eye out for if you just like the universe of Avatar. But I think that's pretty much everything. Like, I'm probably forgetting like one or two things here or there, but like they're the main things. The comics, what other books there are coming out, Avatar Studios, the Netflix stuff, and just general merchandise. I suppose bringing it to an end here, I suppose my questions are just, after going through all this, like, what are your thoughts on just like kind of where we're at here, midway through the year? A lot of announcements have happened, but we actually don't have a lot of information on a lot of this stuff. Especially when it comes to Avatar Studios, we really haven't had a proper follow-up to just the initial announcement. That there's only so much speculation that we can do until we actually get some details on what stories we're actually going to be getting. So the big question is, ComicCon 2021, are we getting any news about Avatar Studios? Are we getting a panel? And is that panel going to be just a generic Dark Horse panel, or is it going to be the big Avatar Studios panel announcement? Or, I suppose, could they do something individual, solo, on their own, and just have it be like a Paramount Plus Avatar Studios announcement? Who knows? But Avatar does have a bit of a tradition when it comes to Comic-Con, and I think they'd value that to a decent degree. It feels very early, but we typically with Avatar do know about things like a year or two in advance, at least based on Korra. It was announced and we had 2 years before it came out. We knew about it for 2 years. So let me know what your thoughts are on everything, where we're at, why we know information about this stuff, but then there's absolutely no information about Korra comics, the future of Avatar comics, the books. There's very little information on it. What's going on right now with Avatar in your opinion? But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.